Hello, welcome. Thank you for tuning in, for taking the time, for worshiping with me this day. I want to say happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and especially to my dad. This is going to be the first year that we can't be together. It's hard to even say that. It's the reality of 2020 and the global pandemic. We can't be together, but nothing in this world can change the bond that my dad has with me and with my brother. He'll always be our dad. And Daddy, we love you and we miss you and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks when we come to the farmhouse. And we're able to do that because Ontario now has social circles, which means we can add some people for whom we're able to have close contact with, able to give hugs. And for my family, because my family is very small, that's an easy thing, right? It's going to be mom and dad and Matthew and I. That's our social circle, and we won't be part of other people's circle because of that. In order to maintain the rules. But I recognize that for some people, that's a really difficult thing to do. If you have a larger family, how do you keep to only 10 people? You know, if you start off with 5 or 6 in your own family, and then you want to add, say, the grandparents, well, do they have other kids? Do they have other relatives? And it gets really complicated very fast. And I spent some time talking to friends about this recently and recognizing the added difficulties, the fear of disappointment, of hurt feelings, of excluding, the difficulty of trying to calculate the risks of the people you might add to your circle. It's just not an easy thing for a lot of people. And as we celebrate Father's Day, we recognize that there are some people who just, because of the complexity of it, are still deciding that they can't add people to their social circle yet. They just have to stick with their own household. And that just adds that little bit of a layer of toughness, of discomfort to this day that should be for celebration. And it reminds us that we are still in hard times. We are still going through the most difficult time I've ever lived through. Still, I wish a very happy Father's Day to all the dads out there and to the dad-like men. Because I'm not a mom. I'm not technically an aunt. But I'm a mum-like, aunt-like person to 3 wonderful children in Oshawa, and that's through the kindness of their family adopting me, and making me part of all of their family celebrations. So I recognize that you don't actually have to biologically be a dad to be a dad. And so I wish you a very, very happy day to all of you who have that dad-like role in the lives of children. I want to say a word about quarantine fatigue. In Toronto, we are still in phase 1, and yesterday the news was full of stories about people on patios in places like Markham and other places that had moved to phase 2 that are all around us, but Toronto is still in phase 1. I was talking to a friend in the States because I was also tracking the way that many states are experiencing an uptick in cases of COVID-19. And I had seen this interview with these 3 young women from Florida who'd gone to a bar. They they weren't doing the social distancing, physical distancing thing. They ended up catching it. 16 people within their circle of friends ended up having COVID-19. Thankfully, they did not have the catastrophic strain of it, the one that lands you in the hospital on a ventilator. But they'd gone because, the governor said it was okay, you could go to the bar, and they just wanted to be out with their friends, and they didn't know anybody who had it, so they felt that they were safe. And then turns out no. And I was talking about this situation with a friend, and this friend of mine said, well, what do you expect? People are tired of being told to stay home. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. I am tired of staying home too. But part of our duty as followers of Jesus, as Christians, as followers of Jesus, part of our duty of faith is to care for others in the mind-blowing way that God has cared for us. And we don't get to shrug our shoulders and just say, well, I'm tired of it. I'll take other people's health in my own hands and have that moment of carelessness that leads to others getting sick. We don't get to do that. Part of our duty of faith is to protect the lives of everyone else and to protect the lives. That's Koski chewing her antler because she likes to do that as soon as I start preaching. Part of our duty of faith is to protect the lives of others and the means of life for all. And so we have to care. We have to. It's part of our faith. We have to care. We have to continue doing the things that we know are caring and compassionate and kind towards others. Keeping physical distance. Wearing your mask. I hate wearing my mask. And the first couple of times I wore it, I had a full-blown panic attack that ended in tears. But I practiced, and I persevered, and I wear my mask every time I go into the elevator to take Koski downstairs so that she can do her business. And I hate it, but I do it because it's kind to others. I do it because my faith compels me to do what is kind for others. Wash your hands. All those things that we have heard endlessly since mid-March. We have to not just observe those measures, but we actually have to go further. And so this week, when our elders and our board members met on Zoom and made the difficult decision to remain online for worship, even though we could go back at 30% capacity with a whole bunch of rules in place, even though we could, we decided we couldn't. We have to go further than even the health measures imposed by our officials because we are the church, and the church doesn't exist for us. We exist for the world. That's an Erwin McManus saying, and it's been a guiding principle for me since my seminary days, and I am grateful that he said that, and that it stuck in my brain, and that it continues to guide me. We have to be for the people outside of our own little congregation and our own little circle of faith. We have to. That is part of following Jesus. And if we're not caring for people who we don't even know, then we're not following Jesus. And that's hard to say, but it's also truthful. And sometimes you have to say the hard and truthful thing in a sermon. Okay, so I want to get to today's passage because I feel like that was all kind of a preamble, but I also feel like it has to do with the passage today. The passage today starts with, "So do not be afraid of them." Jesus is talking to the 12 disciples. He's sending them out on a mission to bring the good news of Jesus to those beyond their circle, because it's never, ever supposed to be just us in the inner circle. It's always supposed to go further and to reach people beyond us. And so he's speaking about, when he says, do not be afraid, he's speaking about the people who would persecute the disciples as he sent them out. Because it's dangerous for them to go and share this good news because it is countercultural, it is counter to the established religion. It's going to make those in power feel really uncomfortable. And who do they take it out on? They probably take it out on the messengers. So Jesus says to them, don't fear those who can only kill the body. And another Erwin McManus saying, you have to remember that we are a soul. Erwin McManus would say it this way. He would say, we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Love that. We have to remember that we are a soul, first and foremost, and that even if you destroy the body, the soul remains. And the soul that is in Christ is eternal. Like, there's just no getting rid of it. That lasts forever. And this doesn't mean take unnecessary or foolish risks with your life, or especially with the life of others. This passage should not and should never be used to say, oh, let's go back to church because we should just not fear. Don't worry about that thing that could kill your body. Your soul is eternal. That would be taking unnecessary risk. And this passage also says, you matter. You matter to God so much that he knows the number of the hairs on your head, shaggy though they may be at this point. He knows the number of hairs on your head. Do you know how many hairs you shed in a day? I don't. It's a lot. I find them everywhere. And yet he could tell you, down to a hair, how many are there this second and an hour from now and a day from now, even though it keeps on changing. You matter that much to him. You know, when kids are born, we count their fingers and toes, right? And it's this joyful thing that we count their little fingers and their little toes. And we do that as an expression of love and an expression of joy of that child's life. And what the Bible tells us is that God loves us so much that he counts our hairs, which is mind-blowing. You matter to God. Your neighbor matters to God. Your friend and your loved one matters to God. Your enemy matters to God. The person you just don't like because they get under your skin and they bug you matters to God. God knows the number of hairs on their head as well. You are precious to him just as they are. And therefore, you have to care for them too. Loving God means loving your neighbor. And there is a difference between fear and wisdom and compassion. It is not fear that keeps us from going back to in-person worship right now. It is wisdom and it is compassion. And I am so proud of our elders and of our board members for putting wisdom and compassion for others above their own wants or desires. We are leading with care of our people by doing the tough thing and staying apart for a while longer. And to be honest, I say a while longer because it sounds less scary than a long time longer. We don't know how long a while is. That's an undefined term. And in 2020, it has to be an undefined term because things keep changing. It just keeps changing. Every time we turn around, it changes again. And we don't know where we will be in September. So we've said at least until September we are going to stay online. It may be, friends. It may be that we get to September and we're in a second wave in Toronto or in Canada and we have to say, nope, not yet. We don't know. What I can tell you is whatever decisions we make as we go forward will be done with wisdom and compassion. And that gives me great faith in the leadership of our church. It is wise and it is compassionate to say that we will take extraordinary measures, difficult, painful measures, to not add to the suffering that is around us. We've passed 1,000 deaths in Toronto. And the worldwide numbers are staggering. Over 400,000 deaths. Like it's so big that it is both mind-blowing and soul-numbing. Like my soul shuts down a bit on that, and I can't even take it in because it's so big and so awful. So, what do we do to have hope in the midst of this very, very difficult time? What do we do to not fear in this time that is fearful, in this time that is full of illness and death and mental anguish and financial suffering? When all those things seem to press in around us, how do we not fear? I'm going to give you three points on this. First, recognize that this is a moment in time. And that's not meant to diminish anything in any way. Let me tell you a story from a few years ago. Many of you know J.P. Smith. He is the clerk of our presbytery, West Toronto Presbytery. He is the synod consultant for congregational growth. I think that's his title. I might have messed that up. If I did, sorry, JP. At Graceview, we know him really well because he was the interim moderator that led the call process that in the end determined that I would be your minister. And he's dear to us. And before Graceview was even a glimmer in my eye, I was having coffee with JP. And I was really upset. I remember being in tears. I remember that feeling of just being overwhelmed and upset and needing a friend and mentor to guide me. And JP has been that to me for many, many years now. And, you know, I was sort of pouring out my heart to him, crying in the Starbucks. And he said to me, listen, I'm not trying to diminish what you're going through. I'm not trying to diminish your real anguish over this, because I get that this is hard. But he said, I also want to say to you that this is a bump in the road. And it sucks when you're in the midst of the bump, but there's a lot of road in front of you. And there will come a day when you won't even remember this bump in the road. And I can tell you today, I have no idea what I was crying about. I can't tell you what I was upset about. I remember being upset. I remember JP's very good sound advice, his care and his compassion. I don't remember what it was about. It just gone completely. So we will probably remember this moment for a long time to come. It will be a historic thing for us, but it's also a moment. It's also a moment. It will not last forever. There will come a day when we're beyond this. And that's not to diminish the fact that this is just plain awful to go through. But the story isn't over yet. We're not at the end of the movie. There's a lot of road in front of us. So let's keep going. That's number one. Okay, I promise you the other 2 points won't be that long. The second point I want to make to you about how not to fear in these difficult times is to reach out. Reach out to the person you can pour your heart out to, the person you can proverbially cry in a Starbucks with, that person who you trust and you know and will listen to your heartache without diminishing it or dismissing it in any way, and who will help you walk through what it is to pour out that heartache and to remember that it doesn't have the final say. And if you don't have that person, call your minister. She'd love to talk to you. I promise you. If you have one of the weekly emails I send to the congregation, then you have my cell phone number. And if I don't pick up immediately, I will call you back and we will chat through it. If you prefer email or text, then you're probably my kind of person, because I'm better on those than on the phone. But nonetheless, reach out. And if all of that just seems overwhelming and you're not ready to talk and you're not ready to put it into words, just know that I am praying for you daily. And God is with you daily, moment by moment, second by second. Okay, so third and final point of how not to fear when death and illness and mental anguish and financial discomfort are all around us. I can only say this to you in song, so let me give it a go. It goes like this. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full all in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. God bless you, and amen.